and I'm happy to present our next event, Mountains Connect Partnerships Across Mountain Ranges. So please welcome Udayan Misra from ICIMOD to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here in the Crashpro Pavilion again with all of our partners, and thank you, Arti, for introducing this session. So this session would be something similar to what the previous session that we had, in a way that it is also part of the organization being done by the part of the Adaptation at Altitude Consortium, but along with other organizations as well, including UNEP, Adaptation at Altitude. Carpathian Conventions, Eastern Africa, African Community, and Alpine Convention as well. So we all know that the fly is buzzing. Yeah, so I'll try to be very quick. The world's mountain regions are facing similar challenges in terms of accelerated climate change impacts, and there is a need to shift the understanding of mountain realities from the periphery towards the center of global climate and environmental discourse. And that is what we came to Crash Pavilion this time at COP27 with a message, with the slogan "Moving Mountains." So, moving the mountain realities, from the periphery to the center of the discussion. So just to give you a brief background of how this event was structured. So in June this year, the Mountains Connect Interregional Workshop engaged representatives from Alps, Andes, South Caucasus, Carpathians, East Africa, and Hindu Kush Himalaya to connect and exchange knowledge on climate change, adaptation, and regional governance in the mountain regions. The workshop was undertaken as a part of the STC-funded Adaptation at Altitude program and with the support from the University of Geneva, hosted by UNEP in Vienna, Austria. So, building on the Mountains Connect workshop that took place this year, with this event, we aim to share some of the lessons that we've learned throughout that process in our aim to understanding the mountain governance of different regions across the world. And as a part of the project, we've also come up with a setup of a knowledge portal which we call Mountains Connect. So a part of the activity here is also to promote that the online portal. So without further ado, what I'll do is I talked about the June 2022 interregional workshop, the Mountains Connect workshop. So I'll just request my friend to play the very short video that will give us a glimpse of what was that workshop about and what kind of discussion that we had around regional cooperation around the mountains. So may I request my colleague to play the video?
This workshop is definitely important. Mountains Connect. It's important that different mountain regions of this world connect each other, exchange their experiences.
From the Andes, from Africa, from Carpathian, and of course the Alpine Convention.
I came from the Carpathian region. We have Carpathian Convention as a regional instrument for cooperation, and we are ready to share our experience. I'm ready to listen and discuss with my colleagues.
Most of the mountains that we have in the East African community are transboundary, the same as the other regions in the world. We are very interested in learning more about the Alpine Convention because we hope to benchmark from them to be able to also develop a regional framework for the East African community mountains development.
I want to learn all the good experience trying to apply governance in mountain areas, but also the problems and main challenge.
No, it's house.
You should involve the civil society here. So responsibility for coordination should be there.
Yeah, there's a responsibility for the nation, but
Okay,
including
come down to the last one.
things that everybody benefits from railway lines.
I think they tried to make everyone
Yeah.
The mountains actually can face the similar challenges, but different regions have different approaches and different experience how to handle those problems. And we were talking about how can we connect to other regions.
I believe that probably other regions can learn from us, especially on the involvement of the communities in sustainable mountain development.
So they are 10, we are 2.
There's strong lessons on negotiations and strong lessons on win-win situation. In fact, the simulation mirrors the real-life situation in the mountains. And for the region, I must first of all compliment the team who constructed the simulation.
We have to take it issue by issue, and that is then the next step is the global level.
It was very interesting. I learned many things. Investing in adaptation in mountain areas is expensive, and you must make a deliberate effort as a country or as a region to budget for adaptation, but also we must have a balance between conservation and development.
For me, it's really interesting this relationship between economical, legality, and political decisions. I learned a lot about that. But we know that in reality, everything is more complex than that. So it's a good exercise.
This workshop as a platform also gives us opportunity for networking.
To put a face to the names of the people that I've been having meetings with online.
It's very important to know the people and know all the conventions related with the mountains. I know now which person contact to ask the key questions that I have.
One of the most interesting things about this workshop has been learning by seeing, learning by doing. We always talk about mountains being the water towers in theory, but I practically saw that the mountains of Vienna are actually the source of water for Vienna. And I must say that water ideally must not have a taste, but that is the sweetest water I've tasted in my life, and I could not have enough of it.
Yeah, thank you, colleagues. So there was a very quick sort of intro to the workshop that we had in Austria in June 22nd, which dealt with understanding different models of mountain governance across the mountain regions in the world. But with this, I just wanted to also acknowledge the presence of His Excellency Mr. Sushil Kumar Lamsal, Ambassador of Nepal to Egypt, to this program. Thank you, sir, joining us here with us. And we also have Mr. Helmut Hozeski, Chair of the Alpine Climate Board of the Alpine Convention, Austria. Thank you for joining us. We have Alenka Smerkels, Secretary General from the Alpine Convention as well. We have Babar Khan, Senior Ecosystem Specialist from ECMOD, Dr. Arun Bhaktashrestha, Senior Regional Program Manager from ECMOD. And we also have Ms. Esika Fosenka from the Anten Mountain Initiative, Ministry of the Foreign Affairs from Peru, Latin America. So this event actually is trying to bring in people, and the representatives from the different mountain regions across the world. Though ECMOD being an organization working mostly in the 8 regional member countries, we wanted to have this opportunity to learn from other mountain regions, mostly on the mountain governance structure. And I should not also forget to mention that the planning of this event had been made successful with our colleagues from UNEP, who has joined us, who has actually joined us virtually in Zoom. They are listening to us. So we have Ansgar from UNEP and Sabine, and I think Matthias has also joined. And we also have Harald Egger, sorry, not Harald, Matthias joining from UNEP. So to take this event forward, I'd like to request to just give a very few remarks. I mean, just 2 to 3 minutes on the the examples of mountain governance from the respective regions. So for that, may I invite Alenka Smokles, Secretary General, Alpine Convention. And while she comes here, can I request my colleague Ansu to share the slide? Yes.
Thank you very much, Udayan. Dear all, I am very, very grateful to ICIMOD for hosting again a side event dedicated to specificity of mountainous regions in the climate crisis, which is always an issue and a topic for the Alpine Convention. Last year, I could only attend remotely, so therefore I'm even more happy to be here today in order to exchange further. The International Year of Sustainable Mountain Development provides us, I think, with really a unique scene, a unique opportunity to put the spotlight on mountain regions, on our vulnerabilities, and also on our specific solutions. And of course, this is also fitting in the end with the Mountains Connect workshop that took place in Vienna in June this year. And I was very happy to follow the video and understand a bit more. My deputy was there, and he came back enthusiastic of how knowledgeable colleagues, people from all around the world, from different mountainous regions are, and how much we can learn from each other. And I think this is also the main topic of today's discussion. We were also very, very happy that after this workshop in Vienna, we had a study visit in Innsbruck from Hindu Kush Himalayan High-Level Task Force. It was led by ICIMOD. And we spent basically 2.5 days together exchanging. We tried to deliver our main strengths, but also mistakes that we did. And we also learned from them. So they helped us reflect on our own processes in the Alps. For those of you who don't know Alpine Convention well yet, I wish just to briefly set the scene. It's a regional collaboration within the Alps. We are a territory shared by 8 countries, like Hindu Kush Himalaya, with 4 national languages and almost 15 million people in the mountain area, and even more than 80 million if you include the foothills. The first idea of the treaty dedicated to joint protection and sustainable development of the Alps was part of the founding principles of the International Commission for the Protection of the Alps, CIPRA, an NGO created in 1952, so 70 years ago, already back then in reaction to the threats that the alpine environment faced. And it took 4 decades, 40 years, to mature, the idea to mature. And then when it gained also support of the European Parliament, and ultimately Germany offered, let's say, or organized the first ministerial meeting, which this took place in 1989. And 2 years after, in 1991, the Framework Convention, the Framework Agreement among the 8 countries and the European Union was signed. And since the beginning, the civil society, the NGOs, but also very, I would say, specialized bodies like protected areas, let's say, our natural habitat. It's something that remains paramount in our processes. We have a framework convention between the 8 states and the European Union, and they are accompanied by 8 thematic protocols. So it's quite a heavy structure, but which can produce also results. And of course, as far as climate change is concerned, we do not have a protocol, but adaptation and mitigation throughout basically have been the priority area of our work for a very long time. We have designed a plan, and we have designed concrete pathways. We have designed also concrete measures. And this is what already Helmut Hoeski, the chair of the Alpine Board, mentioned in the previous panel, but also he will afterwards, so I will not go very deep into it. It's now all about implementation. It's pretty, I cannot say easy, because it took us quite some time to design all the plans, to design the measures. But implementation is always a different thing, and it's never easy. So you have to involve a lot of different stakeholders. You have to involve also very, very much all territorial levels, going down to communities. And it's a lot of communication. So the task of the Alpine Climate Board, which Helmut chairs, is not an easy task, and it's actually quite a huge challenge. And we expect from the Alpine Climate Board a lot all the time. So yeah, you can ask a lot of questions to Helmut afterwards. During this mandate, the work will focus mainly to reinforce the synergies between different sectors, which again, easy to say, hard to do, but also to address some conflicts that are arising, for instance, between renewable energy production and ecosystems preservation. In conclusion, I would like to go back to where I started. It's about sharing experience and building partnerships. I think it's somehow also our responsibility to try and a bit force more collaboration among different mountain regions. We learned, especially this year, yes, we have the year, we have the scene, we have the potential, and we also were able to gather some money from the contracting parties because we have the year of the International Sustainable Mountain Development. But I think that it's it's now the time when we need to move forward together. We are in different continents, but we have very, very similar challenges, even though we are very different. And I think we can really sharing more and building partnerships is what we need to do now. So I'm very eager to hear what's going on elsewhere. And I think that there was one good thing during the pandemics, and that is that we can now also exchange, if we know each other, also not just when we work together, but online. But of course, this contact, and that's the reason why I'm happy to be here, is crucial to then have all the potential for everything, or building partnerships also elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Elenka, for setting the scene and sharing some experiences of the work of the Alpine Convention. And as you said, it has truly been an honor to learn from the mechanisms and the history of the convention for ICIMOD, as ICIMOD is in the process of sort of proposing a similar mechanism in this region as well. So now, just to touch briefly on what ICIMOD has been doing so far, from the learnings and from all the mechanism that we've established with the high-level task force with 8 representatives from the region. So I'd like to request Dr. Babar Khan, Senior Ecosystem Management Specialist from ICIMOD, to briefly touch upon what has been the progress so far on that prospect from ICIMOD's perspective. And Dr. Baba, can I also request my colleagues to share the slide that we have?
Thank you so much, Udayan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Warm good afternoon, although you must be tired attending all the day sessions. So let me briefly tell you about what ICIMOD is trying to do in the HKH region. First of all, I would like to thank our partners from Mountain Partnership under the umbrella of Adaptation at Altitudes program, where we had the chance to meet some of the regional networks, regional mountain networks working around globe. That was indeed a great learning experience and a wonderful opportunity to take some of our representatives from the regional member countries in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region to the Mountains Connect workshop, where they listen to our partners from the Alpine Convention, Arctic Council, and the Carpathian Council, how these regional mountain governance institutions or mechanisms are working. What's their organizational structure, how they perform their duties and responsibilities and deliver on the objectives they have set for themselves. As guided by the ministerial declaration of October 22, we had established a high-level task force for the HKH region. These high-level task force members are actually the government officials, senior government officials from all the 8 HKH countries, who were then agreed to deliver on these 4 things. There are a couple of other things as well, but these are very much relevant to this forum. One was that we should have a ministerial mountain summit every 2 years as a platform given to the political leadership, public representatives of all the 8 countries to come together, sit together, discuss the issues of their common interest and concern and benefits, obviously, and come up with an agenda to work together to take collective actions, including climate change, but sustainable development and biodiversity conservation as well. Then the other thing that was agreed in the declaration was we alone as individual countries in the region cannot really influence the global discourse on mountains. So we need to join hands with forces from the other regions as well. Apart from collaborating among ourselves within the region, we need to work closely with the other regional mountain organizations like Alpine Convention, Arctic Council, Carpathians, Andes, and many others who are already doing a lot of work on that. So we could have a strong, united voice on mountains to be discussed on the forums like this we are gathering here today. The third point was one of the gaps which we have been discussing in our region in particular, but I hope I can understand it's the similar, sort of varying intensity and levels persist in other regions as well, is the disconnect between the science and the policy. Actually, we will go one step further, saying that there's a disconnect between science, policy, and the practice that we want to deliver upon. So therefore, this task force was assigned a special task to convene biannually a science policy forum. And that can start with the science policy dialogue at the country level of the HKH region, where we have 8 countries. Those science policy dialogues can then feed into this science policy forum, which will be at the regional level, where the countries can together discuss and identify the regional issues to work together. And the fourth and most interesting was the high-level task force had to conduct a feasibility study, had to conduct a study of such institutional mechanisms from other parts of the world. And as part of that institutional mechanisms, they have to come up with a configuration that can suit, that can be feasible, that can be acceptable to the regional member countries in the HKH country. So our high-level task force members in that way attended the Mountain Connect workshop in Vienna this year in June, where they were briefed about the existing mechanisms, particularly from Alpine Convention, Arctic Council, and Carpathian Council. I'm really feeling pleasure sharing with you that based on that experience, that learning from that particular workshop, the task force members agreed on a high-level institutional mechanism for the HKH region. They developed initially an outline to compile, to just consolidate their learnings and experiences from this workshop and present it in the form of a report, to the upcoming Ministerial Mountain Summit. We are planning to have the second Ministerial Summit in May next year, and quite hopeful that the recommendation report that the members of high-level task force, with the support of ICIMOD is actually the secretariat for the high-level task force, they will finalize the report and present it to the Ministerial Summit. And if agreed in the summit, then the ministers of the HKH countries will issue a second declaration on formation of this high-level institutional mechanism. So thank you so much, Alpine Convention, Arctic Convention, Arctic Council, and Carpathian Conventions, for giving us this opportunity to learn from your experiences, your work structures, governance mechanism, to help us develop a similar mechanism of mountain governance for the HKH countries. We are on the way. So hopefully we'll update you next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bawarzi, for sharing the progress that ICIMOD, along with our SKH countries, has been making, learning from the experiences from the other mountain regions. So without further ado, I think, in all of this process, and also the organization of the Mountains Connect workshop. So it was very nicely organized by UNEP Austria team. And with honor, I'd like to request my colleague Sabine McCallum, who is the Associate Program Management Officer at UNEP Austria, to deliver his brief remarks, which will be done online through Zoom. So Ansu, can I request Sabine to say her remarks?
I hope you can hear me.
Hi, Sabine, do you hear us?
I can hear you. I hope my voice are working.
Yeah, can you raise the volume a little bit up? Yes, Sabine, I think we can hear you now. Yeah.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone, and Warm greetings from Austria. My name is Sabine McCallum. As Ryan introduced me already, working on climate change in mountains at UNEP's Vienna Program Office, and it's a true pleasure to be virtually joining this event, unfortunately not in person this time around. You already got a taste with the video from our Mountains Connect workshop, and it was actually a premiere today to show this video. Many thanks also to our colleagues from Zoe in producing this documentation that is, and I hope this conveys the message of being extremely inspiring and also a lot of good takeaways that it produced. It always puts a bright smile on my face, seeing and hearing also what colleagues from Hindu-Kush Himalayas and also from the Alps and other mountain regions that we featured and invited to this workshop to see how inspiring this interregional exchange and this mutual learning from each other can be and will further be supported under the Adaptation at Altitude program, which is financed by the Swiss Development Corporation. UNEP, apart from our regional work in East Africa and the South Caucasus, is tasked to foster this interregional exchange further. We are pleased that this side event being co-organized together with ICIMOD is another stepping stone towards strengthening our joint efforts in facilitating mountain governance mechanisms, and ultimately, of course, most needed climate action in mountain areas. So why interregional exchange? A lot has been said already, although all mountain regions, of course, are specific in terms of the natural surroundings, but also their socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds. When it comes to climate change aggravating already existing development challenges, we are all sharing very similar concerns. And these concerns do obviously not stop at national borders, which is why regional governance is so important, especially for connecting ecosystems such as mountains. The Mountains Connect virtual space, which has been mentioned under the website mountains-connect.org, has been collecting various approaches for governance mechanisms of 8 mountain regions across the world. Together with the University of Geneva, we have been producing short videos on most relevant governance dimensions, which I can only warmly recommend to watch. They're about 6 to 8 minutes, very easy to digest, and should certainly be another background material to inspire and learn from the various approaches that are featured in those videos, and providing insights from mountain stakeholders, which actually talk about their experiences and share their knowledge. Various approaches are chosen in the different mountain regions, which are deemed to be effective in terms of facilitating climate action. One should be stressing that each mountain region has, of course, chosen approaches due to the setting made the political space that are working in, may it be social and cultural backgrounds. And I think all of them are extremely interesting. That's why this exchange and learning is so important, because every single component of approaches and aspects can be useful also in other regions. We strongly believe that this learning from these approaches and supporting each other in further strengthening or building up regional structures will inspire ease and, most importantly, speed up related processes as frameworks for safeguarding our beautiful mountains and their crucial ecosystem services. I always love the end of the video when Maureen, our dear colleague from Uganda, is talking about the sweet water of Vienna coming from the close Vienna mountains. That's exactly one of the ecosystem services that are mostly important to preserve. I stop here and look much forward to hear more from the panel about the backgrounds and experiences in their mountain world. And thank you so much for being able to virtually join this event. Back to you, Udayan.
All right. Thank you, Savin, for sharing your remark from the UNES perspective. I think the interregional workshop that you all organized this June this year was truly instrumental for all of the mountain regions communities to exactly learn from the different experiences from the regional mechanism. So thank you very much for your quick remarks. So now we move into the next part of the session today, where we'll have a sort of a moderated dialogue with some of the representatives here from different mountain regions. So to carry out the moderated dialogue, may I request Dr. Babar Khan from EC Mode to the stage and invite our respected guests to be in the panel at the front. Thank you.
Thank you, Udayan. Thank you so much. As Udayan and other distinguished speakers have already mentioned, that this particular session is about cross-learning and exchange of information. And this particular panel talk is more about two types of cooperation leading to collaborative actions. One is how the institutions have been promoting regional cooperation among the countries at their own regional level, within their own region. We wish to really listen to you, how you have been bringing different countries within your region to cooperate with each other for the promotion of a sustainable development mountain agenda and improved governance, say in the Alpine region, in Arctic region, or in some other mountainous region. And then what type of challenges did you experience and what strategies you adopted to resolve them? Because we expect that these type of challenges and issues will be coming up and we will be facing them in the HKH region, trying to bring our partners to work together. And my second question would be how we can better cooperate with each other. It's like more like inter-regional cooperation. How the Andes, how the Alps, how the HKH, how the Arctic can work together to become a really strong and influencing voice of the mountain communities at the global forums. So before going into having your remarks, may I request my esteemed panelists to join us here in front. I would like to invite Harold. She's joining us online. Okay. So, Harold Egger, could you please show her on the screen? Harold Tigrar is Secretary General, Carpathian Convention. Welcome, Harold. Thank you for joining us. My second guest speaker is Jessica Fonseca. Would you please, ma'am, join us here? Thank you so much. And I would also like to request Helmut Hodgeski, Chair of the Alpine Climate Board of the Alpine Convention, Austria too. Please, thank you so much. My colleague, Dr. Arun Shrestha, may I request you to please represent EC Mode in the panel. Dr. Arun Shrestha, as you have heard in the previous session, is the lead and expert on cryosphere and river basins working at EC Mode. We have the honor to have with us His Excellency Sushil Kumar Lamsar, Honorable ambassador of Nepal to Egypt here with us. We would really like to chair this session by you, sir. And at the end, you will guide us by giving some closing remarks. And ICIMOD being a host country, Nepal being a host country of the ICIMOD office. So that's why we would also request honorable ministers to say a few words to pay vote of thanks to our esteemed guests here. So, without taking much of your time, let me put the question first. To Jessica Fonseca, may I ask the question to you, please? And the question is, what model of cooperation mechanism, council, convention, or some others work best in your region to bring mountain voices together? And follow up to that, what are the challenges and lessons you learned from your previous work? So I will be putting the same question to all the three panelists, and they'll come to the Honorable Secretary at the end, Honorable Ambassador at the end for some conclusions. So over to you, Ministers.
Well, it's okay? Okay, thank you. Well, I am honored to be here in first place with such experts on their field, so it is very a very happy occasion. The Andean Mountain Initiative is a non-binding mechanism that brings together 7 of the Andean countries in the South America region, and we are now working on strengthening this mechanism of cooperation. As I said, it's a non-binding agreement, so we share the same goal of develop more sustainable approach to the Andean management of the Andean region, and we are working together to achieve this goal. As you said before, and also in the presentation about your region, there is a lot of work to do with the regional and sub-regional levels in our countries. There is a big challenge there, and we have to work with a lot of different stakeholders. We have to work with the rural communities, with the indigenous people, with women, with the urban communities also in the mountains, and it has been a challenge for us to find the best way, the best approach to implement. That's also one of the challenges we have. We have the policies, and now we need to implement them, and the implementation is the most difficult part for us, and the implementation in the sub-national level, that's the key part that we need to work now on. As you said, the science is on one level, the policies on another one, and the implementation lags behind.
On a different level.
Yes, exactly, on different level. And it is the same for us. We need to work on that level, and that's why we are glad to have the opportunity to share these experiences and to hear how you are working in your regions to address the same challenges that we have. That's
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. May I put the same question to you, sir?
Sure, thank you very much. Well, in the Alpine region, we have the privilege that we have a convention as a basis for collaboration, as Alenka has pointed out, since 1991 already. We have 8 protocols we are working on, so that's our legal framework. However, we have these formal meetings of parties, of ministers every 2 years, where decisions are taken.
But collaboration within the Alpine Convention is much more, of course. We are working closely together with our observers. CIPRA was mentioned, and many others within the Alpine region. But as also pointed out during the previous side event, and sorry for, I hope you don't have any overdose of myself. As I pointed out, the Alpine Climate Board is also working closely with other mountainous regions like the HKH, like the Andes, the Caucasus, and the Carpathians. So this is key, this is important. There are challenges, of course. The challenges are that our parties have different political, legal circumstances. Some are federal countries, so we have, in the case of Austria, for instance, but also Germany, we have the federal level, we have then the regional, provincial level, and we have the local level. And all three levels have their own jurisdiction. So to bring this together is complicated, but the Alpine Convention is the umbrella, and we try to share our challenges as well, and bring together people and also the local and regional level. So, for instance, we have representatives of the province of the Tyrol and Bavaria in the Alpine Climate Board, so they represent the regional level. So it's a good way of understanding each other much better.
That's
so
great.
that's our way how we proceed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting to learn about the Alpine Conventions, where the challenges you faced. And obviously, I will come to the other question as how you were able to manage this. Let me now go to my colleague Arun Bakhto-Shrestha. Although we know that Hindu Kush Himalaya is comparatively a more challenging region in terms of the countries they share resources, particularly where the water resources are transboundary and biodiversity in some cases. But at the same time, there are tremendous benefits being shared by different countries and which flow across the borders of their countries and go beyond the national borders. So ECMOD has been struggling for the last almost 3 decades, more than 3 decades now, to bring the countries in the region to work together. Dr. Arun, what do you think that what strengths we have? What are the opportunities in the region, and obviously the challenges to bring all the countries, 8 countries, onto the table and make them discuss the issues and the benefits they have as common agenda to work on? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. You have rightly started the statement by saying there are challenges. So I probably will start from challenges because we have plenty. There are also opportunities, also plenty. But moving from challenge to harnessing the opportunities, I think we need to fathom quite a bit of depth. So I would start by, kind of talking about the challenges, right, to set the context. I have been introduced as a manager, regional program manager for cryosphere and river basins and cryosphere. So that means I work in the water sector mostly. And I guess we all know in Hindu Kush Himalaya, water is considered very, very sensitive issue. Not only the quantum of water, but also the bad part of water, DRR, even, cooperation around is taken with high sensitivity. So what I personally call this is part of a vicious circle of mistrust. Let me try to explain it, if I may. Water being a very sensitive area, particularly, it is also, supporting the geopolitical sensitivity in the region, right? So the geopolitical sensitivity, actually what it does, it inhibits many different things. it inhibits cooperation, but it inhibits also science cooperation. So because of geopolitical sensitivity, this cooperation around science is also at a very low level. Now, what it does, if you do not have science cooperation in a shared, uh, geography like a river basin, you have incomplete knowledge and also siloed knowledge, right? So what happens in our region is there are a lot of myths. There are a lot of myths around what is happening in upstream country and how it will impact downstream country. There are myths, sometimes very surprising myths being put in the press about why the glaciers are melting, and probably the military actions were responsible for the glacier melting. That kind of things are quoted. You know, this kind of myths actually are emanating from incomplete knowledge of the system, where only compartmentalized research work happened, right? And then that kind of myths actually feeds back to the geopolitical sensitivity. So that vicious circle of geopolitical sensitivity goes on and on. And we think to make any dent on it, you really have to break that circle.
That's true.
And the only way at present state in Hindu Kush Himalaya is through knowledge, right? And knowledge cooperation is something which we really have to put emphasis on, and on the longer run this will actually reduce the mistrust, the myths, and then result in more stronger cooperation at political level, right? So that's what we have been working on. So at least from my groups, my personal experience, we have been working on basin level knowledge platforms and knowledge hubs, knowledge networks. We have a few examples. For example, in Indus Basin, we have Upper Indus Basin network, which brings together. It's a semi-formal arrangement. There are government representatives, but also non-government academic representatives as members of the network. But it is a voluntary kind of network where representatives from 4 Indus Basin riparian countries come together and talk about research related to climate, cryosphere, water, disaster, and adaptation. Right. So this has been going quite nicely. Although the countries sharing that river basin have big political issues. The other example is around Koshi Basin, which is part of Ganges, shared by China, Nepal, and India. We have Koshi DRR Knowledge Hub, also taken with quite interest by all 3 countries. So these are some of the examples which we have been following, and believe that through knowledge, in a longer run, it will take time, it will take a lot of patience, but this is the way to reach to a more stronger collaboration
Yeah,
in
thank
those
you.
river basins. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Arun. Yeah, it's one of the ways to depend on non-political forums at some time to discuss the political agenda at a later stage. Knowledge hub starting with the knowledge and information exchange and sharing in case of Hindu Kush Himalaya has been quite useful. Uh, I would like to know from you again, what opportunities do you see for inter-regional cooperation, like cooperation between Hindu Kush Himalaya, Andes, Caucasus, Alpine and Arctic regions, for exchange of such knowledge, which is useful and can be common to all others, and they can use it as we use it in case of our institutional mechanism. So if we just stay ourselves to the climate change also and focus adaptation measures, so could you share some experiences that what type of opportunities do you really see that can be helpful for promotion of inter-regional cooperation on adaptation to climate change? Please, thank you.
Thank you. Well, as we saw in the video at the beginning, there's a lot of interest in cooperation between regions. we share similar challenges and not so similar also, but there is a willingness to collaborate. One of the issues we think it will be important to get cooperation is to support the development of processes, specific policies to mountains, glaciers that are specific to mountain glaciers and paramos and other mountain ecosystem. And also we need support for formulating and implementing adaptation measures to climate change in mountain ecosystems. This is another topic that Andean countries are very interested in getting cooperation. And also I will say the concepts of articulation, of harmonization, and cooperation are key in this work that we can do together. And we also want to know how, in the case of the Alpine Convention, you have a convention. So how has been the process of the negotiation to the convention to get, I mean, I can imagine the hardness of that process. And so that kind of, because we are thinking of the future, and maybe the Andean countries evaluating the progress of our platform can reach a conclusion that we need a convention. So it will be really helpful for us to know this process, and also the challenges that mean for your countries to have a convention and a legal binding instrument that is very different to initiative that is non-binding. No, so I would say that we find that there is a willingness in the international community to work together in this issue. Yeah, it is very important, and we have keys. Socios, I mean, I forgot the word in English, but associates to partners, key partners in the international organizations that are, and the non-international organizations that are working towards that goal. So I would say it's a very positive environment. Not without challenges, but I think it is the moment to strengthen this work.
Thank you so much. May I ask, Helmut, may I know from you how difficult it is to tap financial resources for implementation of the mountain agenda in your region? And what opportunities do you really see for all of us in the different regions to work together and build on actually, a concrete sort of argument for discussion at the forums like COP27 and future COPs?
Yeah, thank you. These are in fact two questions, and I would like to separate them. The first question is how we handle the cooperation, in fact, without financing. So in the Alpine Climate Board, we established so-called caretaker groups, so people who work on the implementation of the pathways of the specific sectors they are working on. And this is, in our experience, a bit difficult to motivate people, because some have the support from their institutions or superiors, others are lacking this. So we are thinking about how we can bring them towards financing, which we as the board cannot provide. So our advice was, please look to the different possibilities of applying for projects within the country they live, but also from the EU. There's a lot of opportunities in different tracks, and some were already successful. So they applied for projects which they implement, and the results will be brought back. In the interregional context, I think it's important to show some willingness to support specific projects. And as I said in the previous side event, Austria is spending 1 million for the Mountains Adapt project of UNEP and others, because we think it's important that pilot projects for certain adaptation measures are implemented, and we can learn from each other by implementing these projects. We have all the same concerns. We have different national circumstances, but we have the same problems like melting glaciers, like melting permafrost, rock falls, avalanches, landslides. These are all the same in all our regions, and we have to cope with them. Some will not be possible to cope with because with the permafrost melting, there is no way to adapt to it. We have to find some sort of security measures. Rather, there is some end of adaptation. But as I said, we can learn from each other how we can best counteract to all these hazards, which will increase in the future.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I will go to before I ask Arunji. Can I quickly put the same question to you for a quick response, Arunji? Especially, what opportunities do you see in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region for an inter-regional cooperation with other mountain networks from the globe?
Right, thank you. Since, as mentioned earlier, the region is still at a very early stage when it comes to cooperation around shared space. I think we have lot to learn. And again, going back to my own area, which is around water, it is managing basins, right? The river basins, large river basins. We talk about the services provided by those river basin, 1.9 billion people, but then in terms of managing it, we are quite behind. So we have ample opportunity to learn how others have done it. If we look at history, all of the river basins did not automatically start cooperating, right? They always had issues. If you look at Rhine, Danube, Nile River Basin, all have and still have issues, but somehow they managed to something they managed to realize that cooperation is definitely needed. Non-cooperation is only to the harm, right? In many ways, including economic terms. And also Mekong in our region has a formal mechanism. So I think we have a lot of opportunity to learn from others. And again, I go back to my own favorite topic, the knowledge, right? Which is a kind of breakthrough in all this. And what I see, having proper understanding always has been a hurdle to cooperation in those river basins as well as other global, cooperation frameworks like, let's say, in Arctic, for example. Arctic has a special working group, if I understand, called AMAP, right? Arctic Monitoring Assessment Program, which is kind of like a group that provides the scientific basis, scientific information, which provides very strong feedback, for cooperation. I think so. I think at the moment, still the knowledge, improving the knowledge is important, and I think we need to this kind of discussion platform where Arctic, Andes, Alpine, conventions and frameworks are there, and we are sharing the knowledge, what has been their, knowledge in the past, how they have evolved from non-cooperation to cooperation. I think that's something which I think is the most valuable thing that we could get from those regions. I think that's what I would say. Thank you.
Agreed, Arunjit. Knowledge diplomacy, since diplomat is with us. So knowledge diplomacy can be one of the ways to take power. I'm sorry, Harold, for putting you on wait for a long time. Let me come to you with two questions. My first question is, what mechanisms are working well in the Carpathian region? And second is what opportunities you really see or foresee to develop inter-regional cooperation among different mountain networks around the world. I hope I was able to communicate the question.
Yeah, thank you very
properly.
much. Thank you very much. I see that I'm somehow above on the screen, so I didn't want to interrupt. But thank you very much for the question. And again, hello to everybody. Greetings from the Carpathian Convention. We are, so to say, the younger sister or cousin of the Alpine Convention, born in 2003. Uniting the Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, Serbia, Poland, Ukraine, and Romania in this kind of cooperation. And the message I wanted to pass is that for us, it's very important to have a formal arrangement. And one can do many other things together, but to have this formal arrangement for us is key and has made a big difference. And I also believe that the stronger this formal arrangement is, the better it is. So you can have several stages of this formal cooperation, but once you have this formal and institutionalized cooperation, it will create many informal spin-offs, very informal forms of cooperation as well. So it's not exclusive. It's not either or. It's all together. Have a formal one, and the informal arrangements are following. And we have very active cooperation in the field of science. We generate a lot of joint common knowledge that we can share, but also a lot of joint projects through that. Now, our challenges is a little bit the, of course, mountains are not the top priority usually in capitals, and also a low capacity to deal with it. But our main challenge in the moment, for example, is that we have a major crisis in Ukraine. We have war in one of our contracting states. But with a formal arrangement, we are continuing this active cooperation at the Carpathian level in addressing the challenges for the Carpathians. So now for the interregional part, I think that we really believe that strengthening formal mountain region arrangements in all parts of the world is key for interregional cooperation. We can work very well with Alpine Convention, ICIMOD, and also others. The Carpathian Convention is also very likely to be close to the United Nations Environment Program that is facilitating our secretariat. So this we can even have more power to facilitate cooperation, and we can get a lot of inspiration from all the other mountain regions in the Andes, in Africa, all over the world that we are working with. And thank you for this video that was shown in the very beginning from the unit, let's say, Interregional Mountain Program, as we might call it, and to Matthias, Ansgar, and Sabine, who have presented that one. The opportunities for further cooperation is pretty clear for us as well. Climate change is on the top as well. Mountains are most affected. Coalitions like this very event that you are having here now is very important. And I would also like to emphasize the good cooperation that we have with the Alpine Convention and with the Alpine Climate Board of Mr. Hojeski, that we are now basically applying. And also biodiversity in mountains is very important. We are now going to re-sign an updated memorandum of cooperation between the Alpine Convention, the Carpathian Convention, and the Convention on Biological Diversity. We share our experiences with all the mountains of the world in framework of global biodiversity framework and 2020 discussions. And lastly, also to say ecosystems restoration, because we are in the middle of the decade of ecosystem restoration, and there are a lot of opportunities in mountains. As part of such, for example, we have now submitted a flagship, hopefully advocating for mountain ecosystem restoration together with Central Asia and Africa and Serbia. So these interregional cooperation and projects for us are key. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for sharing great ideas. Indeed, climate change is one of the biggest opportunities being cross-cutting, affecting all the mountain regions and other areas in the world. So that could be taken as an opportunity to work together at the uh, inter-regional levels. So this is time to request you for some conclusions from the discussion before we ask our UNEP colleagues to formally conclude the session. Honorable Ambassador of Nepal to Egypt, Sushil Kumar
Thank you.
Lamsal, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khan, for this opportunity to summarize the discussions in this session. So I think there have been a couple of important consensus during these discussions. The first is the need to build institutions and a legal framework to clarify the procedures and processes for cooperation and collaboration among mountain countries. So it was clear from the discussions that the three mountain regions that we discussed chiefly, the Hindu Kush Himalaya mountain region, the Alpine community, the Alpine mountain regions, the Andes, I think they figure into three distinct and different kinds of governance. And in this hierarchical in this setting, I would think that the Alpine community is one of the most sophisticated, the most robustly developed yet. And after that, the Andes community is learning from such experiences. But then, as Arunji pointed out, there is a great scope for further collaboration and community building in our region. In my region, in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. I think this is an important point. Unless we enhance mutual cooperation and build a framework for governance, the problems and challenges that we've seen will continue to accentuate. That was the first important lesson, or the most important point, I think, that this discussions pointed out. The second also is that the need for sharing scientific expertise was recognized. The initiative to do something springs from a realization that there is a gap between reality and policy. So unless we understand the severity of the problem, for example, climate change itself, I'm sure that the sensitivity that climate change negotiations have earned over the past couple of decades would not have been possible without the best science backing behind such discussions. So as Arunji said, again, yes, the need and necessity of sharing expertise and scientific knowledge is important. And how to do this is the most important challenge, I think, that faces the different mountain communities. So to summarize the discussions, we heard from Alenka about the Alpine Convention and about how the different 8 countries have built into a harmonious cooperation mechanism through protocols. And of course, there is not yet a protocol and concrete measures for climate adaptation, but then the principles that the Alpine community, the Alpine Convention has agreed on provides the basis to reconcile competing objectives in a predictable manner. So the initiative for collaboration among nations, the 8 countries in the community, and the willingness to share experience has built a synergy which is lacking in many other communities of mountainous countries. And so we also heard from Dr. Khan about the initiative in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. and how the experiences of the Arctic Council, the Alpine Conventions, etc., have been helpful. I hope that the high-level task force that has been created after the first ministerial will be able to come up with recommendations based on the experiences and best practices of other communities, so that the second ministerial, which is being held in the first half of 2023, will be able to put it up before the political leadership to at least come up and agree on a convention, at least in a semi-formal or at least in a non-binding way that the Indian community has come up with, for example. That would be the first stage before coming to the other phases. And we also heard from Sabine about the Mountain Connect, the initiative to encourage mutual learning about different mountain countries. And we also heard about the importance of developing regional strategies and policies for adaptation to climate change based on interregional cooperation and collaboration. So in the Indian community, the Indian mountain community, we learned from Jessica that even though it's a non-binding agreement among the member states, it is a process for sustainable development of the mountains, the predictable environment of a policy, dialogue, ecosystem that facilitates cooperation on garnering the resources of scaling the best practices, not just in the region that those countries inhabit, but also from other parts of the world. Even though implementation is a key challenge, which is common to many other countries, as we have seen, I hope that the Indian mountain community will be able to improve the collaborative processes and come up with even better outcomes in the future. The Alpine Regional Community was established in 1991. We heard from Mr. Helmut, and the 8 protocols, it provides a legal force and the principles for enhancing cooperation and collaboration. Even though the political systems of different countries, some being federal countries, others not, has created kind of a challenge, which I think should also be one of the parameters, one of the considerations that the Hindu-Kush-Himalayan region might want to consider before developing the framework and frameworks of legal cooperation. But then, if we start, I mean, the first step leads to other steps, and I'm sure integration and collaboration will continue to be enhanced. Arunji highlighted the vicious circle of mistrust in the Hindu-Kush-Himalayan region, which has impacted other political organizations as well. Political meaning regional cooperation, for example, the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation has been a victim of similar challenges. But then how to break this challenge is a key question. And the key to breaking this challenge would be to first start with scientific collaboration, because when we understand that we are in the perilous situation of destruction, political cooperation will follow. So the key is better understanding, better sharing of knowledge and expertise. So there is a consensus among speakers that the key to future collaboration is to learn from each other's best practices, to develop processes, procedures, governance mechanisms, institutions, and to garner resources, if not from a macro level, then at least from different perspectives, different partners and different sectors, as Dr. Helmut pointed out, on specific sectors, if not on a macro level, that will at least start a good practice, an island of excellence, which can be scaled up. And the private sector would also be willing, I'm sure, to cooperate and contribute to this process. So before concluding, I'd like to take this opportunity to express sincere thanks to the organizers of this event. From ICIMOD, Mr. Udayan Mishra, Knowledge Management and Networking Officer, Dr. Babar Khan, Senior Ecosystem Specialist, Dr. Arun Vaktashrestha, Senior Climate Change Specialist, and Deepshikha Sharma, Climate Environment Specialist. And from the Alpine Convention, Ms. Alenka Smekolj, Secretary General, Sabine McCullum, Program Management Officer of United Nations Environment Program, who joined us through video link, and Angsa Fellendorf, Climate Change Expert at UNEP, and Jessica Fonseca, who is here with us, the Andean Mountain Initiative at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Peru. Thank you for your very helpful, insightful comments, Jessica. Harold Aguirre, Secretary General of Carpathian Convention, who joined us through the video link. And last but not the least, Mr. Helmut Hojeski, Chair of the Alpine Climate Board of the Alpine Convention, which I'm sure is one of the most forerunners of this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. Would you like to say something, please?
Sorry to take 1 minute of your time, but I would like to take the opportunity for a small advertisement. We talked about cooperation, and communication is another essential element in this context. And I would like to present you our recent product from the Alpine Climate Board. It's a brochure where we share good practice examples in 4 sectors. It's how we move, so commuting in the Alps, how we live, buildings, what we eat and what we buy, and finally what we enjoy, so leisure time. You find examples, good practice examples throughout the Alps in this brochure. I have brought with me 6 copies. You will find them on the table, but it's also on our website, alpineclimate2050.org. You can download it from the website of the Alpine Climate Board as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Helmut. I hope this will be very useful for many of us, because this is the time to reach to solutions for adaptation to climate risks and changes, and this will obviously be one of the solution guidelines for many of us to seek help from it. With this, our panel discussion comes to an end. I wish to thank you all. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Helmut. Thank you, Arunji. And thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time to be with us. It was indeed a very useful and enlightening discussion. I wish I could continue, but the time is not permitting us. So, Harold, thank you so much for being with us and waiting us for a long time. Now I will move to the last segment of the session, where I think our colleague and friend Ansgar from UNEP is waiting online. Ansgar, would you come in and please share some views briefly about the whole session, and also pay a vote of thanks to the participants. Ansgar.
For organizing this together with the Alpine Convention in this virtual format. So thanks also to the technical team of the Cryosphere Pavilion for facilitating this. The Excellency Ambassador of Nepal to Egypt, I think, summarized very well what has been said on the subject. It was great to hear from the Secretary General of the Alpine Convention the remark that sharing more and building partnerships is what we need to do more. And at UNEP, we are happy to support this interregional exchange further. So this is just one step. This event is one step in the whole process of interregional exchange and building partnerships. We invite you to visit the www.mountains-connect.org, learn more, watch the videos, And yeah, we continue the work, and thank you to everyone for the successful event. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ansgar Palendrop from UNDP, for your closing remarks. And thanks. With this, the events we like to conclude. Thank you, speakers, panelists, participants, for your wonderful contributions in joining us. Have a good time. Thank you.